When Tamar Braxton first went live asking over and over again, "What's the drama? Somebody tell me what's the drama?" thousands of fans thought it was just another one of those classic Tamar moments. The chat filled with laughing emojis, rolling eyes, and people joking about how Tamar always made herself the center of attention. But the longer she stayed on live, the more her voice shook. The more her eyes darted like she was trapped. The more it became clear that this wasn't Tamar performing. This wasn't Tamar being playful. This wasn't Tamar joking around. This was Tamar Braxton spiraling in real time in front of her fans, and she didn't even realize she had become the very drama she was asking about. Tamar admitted right there, trembling into her phone, that she had gone to bed calm and woken up to find her entire world upside down. She confessed she probably shouldn't have opened her mouth at all. That fear had gotten the best of her, that she felt cornered, isolated, and more alone than she had ever felt. But instead of sympathy, people began to whisper that Tamar wasn't just part of the chaos. Tamar Braxton was the chaos. What shocked fans was how quickly everything unraveled. In less than a week, Tamar Braxton allegedly canceled her album, threatened to vanish from the public eye forever, accused her own family of betrayal, reignited old fights with her sisters, and still managed to log on live almost daily to pour gasoline on the fire she claimed she was trying to escape. Fans who once defended her fiercely started whispering the same thing. "We love her, but we don't know what's real anymore." Some even said they were exhausted. And behind the scenes, whispers grew that Toni Braxton herself was prepared to take drastic action if Tamar refused help. Reports circled that Toni, the sister who had always tried to be the peacemaker, was now ready to force Tamar Braxton into a mental health facility, even against her will, because the family had finally run out of patience. But instead of slowing down, Tamar Braxton pressed harder. She posted on the Shade Room in response to a headline, writing out a farewell that read like a goodbye letter. "Y'all won. There's no more album. I'm going to my farm. You'll never hear from me again. I'm sorry for everything." Instantly, the comments filled with prayers, heartbreak emojis, and long messages begging her not to go. Some fans wept for her, others didn't believe her. Because if there's one thing the public knew about Tamar Braxton, it was that her dramatic exits never lasted. Sure enough, days later she returned, not quietly, not with humility, but louder than ever, with even more fire, as if disappearing had been nothing but a dress rehearsal for her next big act. The contradictions piled up quickly. On one hand, Tamar Braxton claimed she had nearly died. She described suffering a fractured nose, missing teeth, and trauma that left her broken. Yet there were no medical receipts, no police statements, no concrete explanations, only fragments of a terrifying story that kept changing. On the other hand, almost immediately after crying about pain and survival, she was teasing a new project, an EP titled Heartbreak Retrograde, and boasting about having major names attached, including Mendices and even her one-time ally, returned critic, Funky Dineva. To many, the timing was suspicious. To others, it was insulting. How could Tamar Braxton be on her deathbed one minute and promoting music the next? Fans said it didn't add up. That was when suspicion turned into full-blown rumors. People online remembered that Funky Dineva had been seen with Tamar Braxton the night before her so-called accident. It didn't take long for social media detectives to weave a narrative. What if Funky had something to do with it? What if Funky was the reason she was hurt? The internet doesn't wait for proof. Screenshots, memes, and hashtags spread like wildfire, and before he knew it, Funky Dineva was being accused of violence, manipulation, and betrayal. His comment sections flooded with people demanding answers. Funky Dineva eventually broke his silence in a fiery video of his own. At first, he brushed off the accusations, saying it was just a few trolls. But then he logged onto his platform one night and saw more than 7,000 people waiting in the chat, not to hear about the latest gossip, not to hear his commentary, but to accuse him of harming Tamar Braxton. He refused to even speak her name, referring to her coldly as that lady. His voice was sharp as he claimed that Tamar Braxton had abandoned him in the exact moment he needed her most. He swore that after leaving a spot called V12, they had gone their separate ways, and that he went home alone. He said he found out about her supposed injuries on social media just like everyone else. And yet, while his reputation was being dragged through the mud, Tamar Braxton stayed silent. She never once stepped in to defend him, never once told her audience that Funky had nothing to do with it. To him, it was betrayal of the worst kind. Privately, he confronted Tamar Braxton, asking her to clear his name. According to him, she told him, "I'm lost. I'm confused. I didn't say anything. I'm in the hospital." But Funky Deneva wasn't convinced. He pointed out that Tamar Braxton had time to post about being laid up in bed, time to cut trailers for her new EP, but somehow not enough time to type a single sentence to stop her so-called friend from being crucified online. His words dripped with hurt and bitterness. "I was collateral damage in a cheap PR stunt." He accused Tamar Braxton of selfishness, of being a poor friend, of sacrificing him for clout. And for the first time, many fans agreed. Whispers grew louder. Maybe Tamar Braxton was stirring up chaos on purpose. Maybe the accident story, the silence, the tears, all of it was carefully orchestrated to generate buzz for her music. The inconsistencies, the timing, the lack of receipts, it all lined up too neatly. And then came the rumors of Tamar Braxton and Mendices. People swore they saw them at a lounge in Atlanta, too close for comfort, whispering, cuddling, looking like more than friends. The story spread across Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram, and still Tamar Braxton said nothing. She didn't deny it, didn't acknowledge it, didn't even drop a vague post to redirect the chatter. Her silence spoke louder than words, and to her critics, it was proof that she wanted the gossip to grow. Meanwhile, Tamar Braxton swore that none of it was fake. She said her exhaustion was real, her heartbreak was real, her decision to retreat to her farm was real. But fans couldn't. Ignore the cycle. She'd cry on live about betrayal, then reappear hours later teasing a project. She'd swear she was gone forever, then post selfies in full glam the next day. It was emotional whiplash. And for those who had followed her for years, it felt like déjà vu. Because this wasn't the first time Tamar Braxton had unraveled like this. Just a year earlier, she had done something almost identical. Threatened to leave the spotlight, accused her sisters of betrayal, and then popped back up when people least expected it. On camera, during family therapy, she clashed with Toni Braxton, accusing her of favoritism and neglect. She shouted that Tawanda only cared when the cameras were rolling, that she had been pushed aside while the other sisters got all the support. Tawanda Braxton sat in stunned silence while Tamar unleashed years of pent-up anger. That wasn't a storyline. That was bitterness that had been simmering under the surface for years. After that blow-up, Tamar Braxton shut down her social media in rage only to return within days. In one now-deleted rant, she accused her family of being toxic, of gaslighting her, of protecting the brand instead of protecting her. She claimed her marriage was falling apart, that her life was in danger, that she should never have come back to Braxton family values. Her posts were frantic, raw, and disturbing, and fans began to realize that what they once laughed off as Tamar being Tamar might be something darker. Then came the robbery. Tamar Braxton posted security footage showing strangers ransacking her car. But it wasn't the robbery itself that shocked people. It was the caption. "I got robbed at home. I'm not safe anywhere. I don't live anywhere. I don't feel safe anywhere or with anyone." The words painted a picture of a woman spiraling into paranoia, convinced the world was against her. Some fans begged her to log off, to protect her peace, to seek help. Others accused her of exaggerating, of turning every crisis into content. Behind the cameras, her sisters had finally drawn their line in the sand. Tawanda Braxton and Toni Braxton refused to film with her until she sought real treatment. Even Toni Braxton, who had always carried the burden of trying to glue the family together, was said to be on the verge of drastic measures. They weren't just embarrassed anymore. They were afraid. Afraid for her safety. Afraid for their family's legacy. Afraid that Tamar Braxton's meltdowns were turning into something that could no longer be controlled. But in Tamar Braxton's eyes, it wasn't love, it was betrayal. She claimed her sisters were silencing her, trying to bury the truth, especially when it came to her niece Ashley's story. Tamar insisted Ashley had every right to speak, to tell the world about the inappropriate behavior she endured, and she accused her sisters of caring more about contracts than family. Her defense of Ashley widened the rift, and the Braxton name became more divided than ever. Through it all, the internet didn't let up. Funky Dineva's rants trended, clips of Tamar Braxton's lives went viral, and the rumors about Mendices clung to her name like smoke. It wasn't just scandal anymore, it was a circus. And Tamar. Braxton wasn't just a star of the show. She was the ringmaster, the performer, and the story itself. By the time the storm hit its second wave, Tamar Braxton had become her own headline. Every live she did, every post she wrote, every cryptic caption she dropped was picked apart like a clue in a mystery case. Fans were no longer watching out of love. They were dissecting her breakdown like detectives, turning her pain into entertainment. One moment she was crying, saying her family had betrayed her. The next, she was teasing new music. The contradictions piled so high that even her most loyal supporters whispered that Tamar Braxton was spinning out of control. Inside the family, Toni Braxton and Toni Braxton had finally drawn their line in the sand, telling producers they wouldn't film another second with their sister until she agreed to get real help. Even Toni Braxton, the one who always carried the burden of peacemaker, was quietly exploring legal options. Whispers spread that the family was ready to step in with guardianship papers, a conservatorship, or at the very least, a forced intervention. But Tamar Braxton saw none of this as love. In her eyes, her sisters were snakes, jealous, fake, and only worried about the Braxton name. On live, she accused them of gaslighting her, of silencing her, of hiding the truth about Ashley, her niece. She reminded her followers again and again that Ashley's story deserved to be heard, that her sisters had buried it to protect their brand, and she would never forgive them for that. To her, their silence wasn't love. It was betrayal. Fans were split down the middle. Some praised Tamar Braxton for defending Ashley, saying she was the only one brave enough to stand up for family. Others accused her of using her niece's trauma as a weapon, dragging it into her personal war for sympathy and attention. At the same time, the outside noise only grew louder. Funky Dineva unleashed another rant, sharper than the first, claiming that Tamar Braxton had thrown him to the wolves just to stir chaos for an album that might not even exist. His words cut like a knife. "You let me get crucified while you sat back and laughed. I didn't deserve that. I was your friend and you threw me to the wolves." The internet caught fire again. Some said Funky was exploiting her breakdown for clicks. Others believed him completely and turned on Tamar, calling her manipulative, selfish, and addicted to the spotlight. Meanwhile, whispers about Mendices refused to die down. People swore they saw Tamar Braxton and Mendices together late at night, looking far too close. Tamar didn't deny it, didn't confirm it, didn't address it at all. Her silence was louder than any statement, and it fueled the fire until her name was trending daily. To some, this was proof of what Funky Dineva had been saying all along, that Tamar thrived on the noise, that she wanted the gossip to grow, that she needed the attention like air. And yet, despite all the backlash, Tamar Braxton didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Attention had become her only lifeline. By the time the chaos reached its third stage, Tamar Braxton wasn't just unraveling online. She was unraveling everywhere. Her lives grew darker, her captions sharper, and her contradictions louder. One minute Tamar Braxton was sobbing into her phone, pacing her room and telling thousands of strangers that nobody loved her, that her family had betrayed her, that she was drowning alone. Minutes later, she would flip, laughing at memes, clapping back at critics, teasing her music, and insisting she was fine. It was emotional whiplash, and fans didn't know if they were watching a breakdown or a reality show without producers to yell, "Cut." The internet, of course, ate it all up. Clips of Tamar Braxton crying racked up millions of views, while memes mocking her contradictions spread just as quickly. She had become both the tragedy and the comedy, both the victim and the villain, and it left people torn between pity and disgust. Behind closed doors, the Braxton sisters were preparing to act. Toni Braxton and Toni Braxton refused to film, with her, firm in their decision that they would not enable their sister's chaos any longer. Toni Braxton, the one who had always carried the weight of peacemaker, had allegedly reached her breaking point. Sources whispered that Toni was considering real legal action, guardianship, conservatorship, or a forced intervention. They weren't talking about saving Tamar Braxton's career anymore. They were talking about saving her life. But to Tamar Braxton, none of it looked like love. She told her fans it was all betrayal, that her sisters had chosen contracts and image over blood, that they were silencing her truth to protect their brand. She reminded her audience again of her niece Ashley's pain, accusing her sisters of burying the story to protect themselves, and she swore she wouldn't let it stay hidden, even if it meant burning every bridge left standing. The fallout was ugly. Some fans saw Tamar Braxton as a warrior, a woman brave enough to defend her niece even against her own blood. Others saw her as reckless, exploiting Ashley's trauma to fuel her personal feud. The lines were drawn, and the Braxton family had never looked more fractured. At the same time, Funky Dineva refused to back down. He went live again, bitter and angry, saying that Tamar Braxton had sacrificed him just to keep her name trending. He told his viewers that while she cried about being betrayed, she was the one who betrayed him, letting thousands call him violent, letting his reputation burn, and never once defending him. His words cut deeper each time. I wasn't the bad friend, you were. And once again, the internet divided. Some accused him of chasing clout, but others echoed his words, turning on Tamar Braxton and calling her selfish, manipulative, and addicted to chaos. And still, the whispers about Mendices lingered. Sightings at lounges, rumors of late-night meetings, whispers of cuddling, it all fed into the narrative that Tamar Braxton loved to let gossip grow until it consumed everything around her. She didn't deny it, didn't confirm it, didn't even drop a single cryptic caption to steer the conversation. She just let it fester, and the silence made the rumors stronger. Brands began to quietly distance themselves. Producers debated if working with Tamar Braxton was even worth the risk. Networks wondered if filming her would cross the line from entertainment into exploitation. For the first time, it wasn't just about whether Tamar Braxton could survive the drama. It was about whether her career, her family, and her sanity could survive it at all. But Tamar Braxton didn't stop. She couldn't stop. She went live. Again and again, clinging to attention like oxygen, feeding the very machine that was tearing her apart. She cried that she was unsafe, that she had nowhere to go, that she had no peace. Then, hours later, she posted polished selfies, teased, music clips, and threw shade like nothing had happened. The contradictions were endless, and fans couldn't tell where performance ended and reality began. Meanwhile, whispers spread that the Braxtons were at a breaking point. Some insiders said Toni Braxton and the others were ready to take full legal control to strip Tamar of her autonomy until she got help. Others said they were ready to cut ties completely to let her spiral without dragging them down. Either way, the family was headed toward a collision that no amount of cameras, contracts, or fan sympathy could prevent. And so the story stood with Tamar Braxton alone on live, crying and laughing in the same breath, clinging to her phone while the world watched. Her sisters behind closed doors, plotting an intervention that could save her or destroy their bond forever. Funky Dineva, bitter and burned, still speaking his truth. Mendices, silent but tied to rumors he couldn't shake. The fans, divided, torn between prayers and mockery. Nobody knew how it would end, but one thing was certain. This wasn't the end of Tamar Braxton. This was just another cliffhanger. In a saga that refused to let her rest, because with Tamar Braxton, the drama never ends.